Hey HCDA and welcome back to Cosmoteer. If you have been following along in the past few episodes, you'll know that I had quite a bit of success with this monstrosity of a prism ship. Honestly, I'm not even sure it should be working, but it is. However, anything that fires back with missiles in particular, especially if it's a lot of missiles, or prisms by itself is a little bit problematic, and considering I am now up to level 15 plus quests, I need to bring a little bit more to the table. However, that shouldn't be too much of a problem considering I can have up to 639 crew, and the two ships I currently have, the main ship has about 300 people, my supply ship has about 60, so I have almost 300 crew open to upgrade my fleet with. Well, at least that's what I thought, because I'm by now several hours into recording of this episode and I haven't really been able to find a ship yet that works like I wanted to. For example, look at this, the shielder. I really like this design. It has a whole lot of shields to hopefully be able to withstand a lot of damage, at least that was the idea. It has a lot of thrust in order to close the distance to the enemy really fast, and a lot of cannons to dish out its own damage, and the idea was that this was going to be literally shielding this one, while this one was doing the main damage and not get barraged by missiles, but that wasn't really working like I was hoping. Because even though in theory it's not even the worst plan in the world, it just wasn't really working like I was hoping to. Just some of these ships dish out so much damage that even all these shields are kind of struggling with it. As you can see, I'm kind of about to lose a part of my ship over there. And this time around, actually, his friend over here is staying here, but a lot of the time there's enemies coming from multiple directions, which is a problem in itself. And as you can see, sometimes one of the ships get in the way of the other, which, I mean, is doing the shielding part for sure, but it's still not really what I was going for. So long story short, it wasn't really working like I was hoping. So then of course my next step was to design an even worse ship to do the same job, because this is the porcupine that I came up with next, which is basically loaded up with a lot of these turrets to take out missiles, because missiles were basically doing the majority of the damage to my ships. And I was like, okay, let's make a ship that's really defensible, that has a lot of missile defense along with a lot of shields. It should be able to take up all of the damage. The problem with this ship in particular was though that it just got in the way so often. This is a really large ship, as you can see, and it's also quite slow despite all the engines, because it has so much armor. So it was just sitting there taking a lot of damage and then just getting destroyed in the end, because we were not doing enough damage to the enemy. So I'm going to go back to the single mothership type of plan. I'm really going to take a few notes from the AI enemies, because these are actually really well designed. Just look at this, for example. There's 24 ion beams, there's 6 heavy lasers, the whole bunch of missiles, and then 2 railguns on top of that. All of that being protected by quite a lot of shields and a whole bunch of armor. And all that armor is being sure that you can actually handle that by means of all these engines. The engines are also kind of strategically placed, so you can actually turn a little bit with this ship as well. And if you attack it from this angle, you're going to go through tons and tons of armor, so you're not going to get any for it while you're still being barraged by missiles. If you're going to go from this angle, well, you're going to get a lot of laser in your face. So the only weak spot really on this ship is this angle, but there's no way you're going to get that, because this can just flip around itself really, really fast. So I'm going to take, like I said, a couple of notes from the AI's book and see if we can design a better ship ourselves, because I really need to step up my game for the last few zones. So let's see if I can actually come up with a design that can stand up to everything we can face in the endgame. So far I've had the most success with the Iron Prism, but it's honestly getting kind of boring to use the same weapon all the time, and the tactic that I've been using is mostly one of just try to stay away from the enemy, fly away from them, and keep hitting them until they die, which again is not really the most engaging gameplay, so I want to try something different this time around. I want to take another look at the Railgun, and before you say, well, that's another long-range damage weapon that kind of wants you to try and run away from the enemy, I know, but that's not what we're actually going to do. Just bear with me for a moment. However, I haven't been really able to get the Railgun to work, because by its default design, it only shoots in a straight line. So you kind of need to fan around your ship in order to hit the spots you actually want to hit, or you will just be basically taking pot shots at the enemy, but not really hitting anything of importance. So here's a pretty standard layout for a railgun setup. So we have some power in the middle, some crew to make sure these things are actually powered, because each of these individual segments needs its own power. We have some storage space for all the ammunition, and other than that, we have 8 segments with the accelerators, so we get a total bonus of at least 100%, which makes sure that the railguns are firing at the maximum range they can. Their default range is 300 meters, but the maximum is 600 meters, so you can increase the damage and penetration beyond that, but not the range. Initially, my idea was to go for something like this. Just a whole lot of railguns all in a row, and then just kind of tilt the ship back and forth and fire all of those things at the same ship at the same time, more or less. And, well, they can't kill you if they can't shoot back because they're dead, right? So, yeah. Honestly, I think this might work, but then I had another idea because I'm really lazy. I like to optimize my gameplay, not just in terms of being efficient, but also by making sure I don't have to do anything more than I need to. So I want to see if we can make something else work. In order to do what I actually want to do, I'm going to need a lot of resources, and my hammerhead ship over here is kind of out of resources now because I put them all in storage. I just basically made my own space station to stock up on all those things I need. You need thousands upon thousands of iron, for example, or steel, but you also need an insane amount of everything else. So I needed a central place to store everything up. This is not actually able to fly in any way. Look, it can't move. There's no engines. It only has a control unit with a very simple set of reactors, and that's it. But this is a very convenient way in order to make sure you always have the resources you need. It took me spending all of those resources, or at least most of it, along with all of the money I had left to build this new space station. Look at this. I call it the Dazzler because that's what it's going to do. It is going to rain hell upon our enemies. The thinking behind this ship is very simple. I do not want to manually rotate my ship all the time because that sounds like a lot of micromanagement, and honestly it still has the downside of maybe being flanked by other enemies. If the guns are pointing in all directions, there's no way I can be flanked. And on top of that, now I can just put my thrusters to auto-fire, at least all the thrusters that move in the the clockwise direction, at least providing thrust in that direction. And as you can see, my ship is now rotating itself, and all I need to do is pick and point where I want it to shoot, and that's the way we're going to be killing our enemies. Does this actually work? Well, we're about to find out. Well, first of all, this ship is the slowest one in history, so it's not going to outrun any enemies. So it's just going to sit there, fire at the enemies until they're dead. That's the plan, at least. Hopefully, I will kill them before they kill me. So now I've gotten into range of enemies. All I need to do is pause the game for a moment, switch to the engines, put them on auto. There we go. And then we should see it starting to rotate. Then I put all my guns on the same thingy. It is important that I actually manually control the guns now rather than just selecting the ship and doing it, because otherwise the ship will start moving again. It took me like half an hour to figure that out, but yeah, I'm just a slow learner sometimes. Yeah, so now we can just target the ship. We have some smaller ones over here. Let's go for the bigger one. Let's see if this works, and just target the control room, I guess. Unpause it. And then as soon as we turn into range, hopefully, pew pew. Yeah, okay, that worked very well. The nice thing is actually, we're about to get outflanked by a lot, but the way I've set it up, I can just have different subsystems, or directions I should say, target different ships. So I can, for example, just queue these up. And then hopefully once these guys reload, they will start firing at this one. Well, this one. Yep, there we go. We took out 2 targets at the same time. I probably want to prioritize the larger ones though, because they are most likely, at least, going to be doing the most damage. And let's see, you are going to be targeting this. I mean, it's still micromanagement going on, but at least it's the fun type of micromanagement where you say, go and kill this one now. This one will need some more firepower, I believe. But we are going to take this one out first. And what are you actually doing? Not much. Oh, you have those prisms. Well, we can just select all the guns at the same time. These guys are not really doing anything. And we can start firing at the control center. Now, one other thing I actually forgot to mention is the benefit of having a rotating ship, and I only realized this after I actually already designed it, is that the damage is being spread out. As you can see, I mean, these missiles are hitting me and the shields are gone, but I'm turning away the vulnerable area away from the other ships, and by the time it turns all the way around, the shields will be back up, at least. That's what I'm planning. You can also see that I am doing a lot of damage to these shields. Some of the shields are coming back up, but there should be another volley. There we go, and it cut right through, and that's another ship gone. So now we only need to take this one out, and we took out an entire zone of enemies. And all of that with taking minimal damage. Now this ship is going to take damage in pretty much every single fight, at least that's what I'm planning for it. But hopefully that won't be much more than just some outer damage to the armor. Speaking of which, I think we need a little bit more armor than we currently have, because honestly this layer is going to be cut through pretty quickly, I believe, and especially here on the outsides with the engines, there is not enough armor to last for a very long time. And I think the enemies are targeting mostly these reactors. They are quite on the outside, they're premium targets, so yeah, I think we need to do a bit more armoring. And I also just realized that even though this design is super symmetric, and I love that, half of these engines are not actually doing anything, because I'm always just going to be rotating either clockwise or counterclockwise, so the other direction doesn't really make much sense. There is the benefit that both of these engines are there pointed in the correct direction to move forward, so I'll have to redesign the engines a little bit to make sure we have enough thrust to actually get where we want to go. But yeah, I think I can take out half these engines in the corners and maybe line up a couple of more so we can rotate faster, because faster rotation means we get more guns in the range of our targets faster, which is more DPS. Something like this. Now all the engines are pointing in the correct direction for the rotation. I did add a larger version of the thrusters here. This might not be enough, we'll have to figure that out, but honestly I'm running really low on funds, so yeah, there's that. And look at these spikes on the outside. It's not much extra armor, but yeah, let's see if this works better. I also want my ship to be slightly faster than it was before, so that's why I didn't add in too much armor. Mostly because, yeah, having to wait for your ship to arrive is kind of annoying. Oh, by the way, let me zoom in. Look at how much armor we have going on, how much people. This ship is carrying about 600 people now. And most of those people are dedicated to either controlling the railguns or making sure we get ammunition back in there, because I want them to be back up and loaded as quickly as possible, because this is the only way we're going to survive. We have a lot of defenses, but we're not going to be able to withstand large barrages of missiles, for example, for a very long time. So ships do need to be taken out as quickly as we can. And let's take on another wave of enemies. Let's start rotating. Let's select all the guns. Let's target at the enemies. So these are again really tiny. I think we need to find some more heavy hitters, because, well, obviously this is not a challenge whatsoever. I mean, these are level 1 ships. It's a whole lot of level 1 ships, don't get me wrong, but it's not really what I would say a challenge. Well, even these level 8 enemies are dying like flies, but we are going to need to be able to destroy something like level 15 and 16 enemies. Look at the speed at which I'm taking out these enemies, though. It's just, well, it's working like intended, that's for sure. Pew pew. So here I am picking at someone of my own size, at least level 16. This is my current level of quests. As you can see, I am still getting quite a lot of fame from this. It would be nice if I can actually see what I'm targeting. And the reason why I couldn't see that there for a moment was that I'm actually taking quite a bit of damage. Not too much damage, as you can see my ship is still fairly intact, and I also destroyed quite a few enemies along the way. Is this dead now? Well, no, it's still firing at me. I think we can speed this up a little. Where are the bridges on this thing, actually? I'm probably just blind. Oh, here we go. There's another bridge over here. That should take it out. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of armor to get through. Oh, hey, thanks for helping. But other than that, there is not really much problem, because I have a lot of impact from these heavy railguns, and as soon as I cut in a few volleys through the armor and the shields, everything just blows up. And that's a level 16 enemy, so we are quite nicely gearing up for the endgame. Fights like this one do actually mean that, like I said, I'm taking quite a bit of damage, and that also means there's quite a bit of repairing to do after every fight. And honestly, that's not really a problem, because these enemies leave behind a lot of resources to do exactly that. As you can see, I can almost do my full repairs just from the shrapnel laying around. I do have to say, having to fully repair my ship every time after every single fight and then slowly moving to the next one, it's getting a little tedious. That said, it's working. I mean, I got all the way up to Exalted now, which means I can actually add 300 more people to my crew, but I'm just going to do that once we actually need to. And that means I now need to go and find level 17 or 18 enemies, because anything else will no longer give me any additional fame. So I am slapping some hyperdrives on my monstrosity of a fidget spinner, and I'm going to move to this zone over here, which is one of the highest level zones in the game. Before going there, I did add a couple of more thrusters on my ship in the middle, so we can speed up to, I think it's like 25 meters per second still only, but it's a lot faster than the 10 I was moving at before. Some additional armor as well, and the spikes are now as large as I can make them within the actual building capacity that we get. There's a maximum amount of space you can use to build your ships, and well, this is pretty much it. And look at that, a level 18 ship came to Gridis. This is the highest level type of ship in the game. There's multiple versions of level 18 ships, don't get me wrong, but as you can see, it's pretty well designed. There's a lot of armor in the front, a lot of shielding here as well. And then there is a whole lot of nasty ion beams that are going to make my life miserable. We're just going to go and shoot at it straight through the gap, at least that's the plan. I have no idea if this is going to work, but I guess we'll find out soon enough. I like how it's taking out the shields, and then we're kind of just rotating away from it, and then it's taking out some more shields. And then the shields, hopefully here in the back, are going to come back up before I rotate fully. Yes? Maybe? No? Apparently not. Well, we'll have to see how this works. We're still drilling through the armor. I mean, this is just a battle of attrition. You can see it's shaved off all my little pins at the front. I did actually set the fire at target thing that a lot of you suggested right now. Let's actually shoot at the... Yeah, there we go. Yep, I think that did most of the trick, and now we should be able to fire right through the middle and take it out. And there you go, guys. The level 18 ship killed completely, and let's check the aftermath. We can actually repair fully. I mean, it's going to take quite a bit of materials, but luckily these type of ships actually bring a lot of materials with them as well. Okay, I have to admit, it's super addicting just to play the Borg and yell, "Resistance is futile," and just start murdering everything that comes even close to my my Death Star over here. This is another level 18 ship. Let's see how we go against this. Are there no shields on this thing? I mean, it's a lot of missiles, don't get me wrong, but I was expecting something to actually protect the ship. I mean, the missiles themselves are fairly well protected, but oh man, look at the amount of missiles. I'm getting some help again. The help is not being very efficient, I have to say. I mean, this is, well, it's taking out some missile turrets, but there we go. I took out half of the control. Let's take out the other half as well. We also have railguns. Was that it? Yeah, well, as expected, that went a little easier. It did help that this level 16 ship was taking some of the missile fire, but still, I think we didn't do too bad on damage. And again, the whole rotation, so let me turn off the rotation, apologies for that. The whole rotating part is actually, like I said before, super useful in spreading out the damage. I did add in some more shielding as well. But as you can see, the damage is really only on the outside. The main systems are not being damaged. In full disclosure, I did have a couple of fights where I took more damage than this, and sometimes parts of my railguns blew up, but then you just rebuild those. As long as you don't lose your entire ship in the progress. This is kind of 4 different sections anyway, so as long as the rotation stays intact, and you keep shooting at the enemies, I've had 0 lost fights so far. Unsurprisingly, that means that I was able to get pretty easily to the 10,000 fame required to get the legendary status. That actually allows me to field another one of these Death Stars. If I could be bothered to go through the entire 2 or 3 hours, it would probably take me to get enough resources to build the entire thing. But I've been able to clear out everything in the game so far just with a single battle star of death, like the one I just showed you. So, working like intended. Kind of means we beat the game at this point as well. Once you hit the 10,000 fame, you actually get a pop-up and it says, well, congrats. You can consider yourself victorious now. You can keep on playing if you want, but you don't really need to because this is about as far as it gets. And just in case you're wondering, once I actually hit the 10,000 fame, I was like, well, maybe I can help my fringe resistance friends over here to take over the entire galaxy or something like that. But actually doing the faction quests in these systems doesn't seem to affect the balance at all. I was kind of expecting for the systems to flip over control once you took out a couple of bases or anything like that, but unless I'm doing something completely wrong, that didn't seem to actually happen, which is honestly kind of a shame. Also, it didn't feel very rewarding to attack the other factions because A, it makes getting around a lot harder, and B, once you actually start attacking a faction, they all get angry at you for a pretty long time, and they do send like a very heavy artillery after you in order to hunt you down. So I'm not entirely sure why you would want to do that. Instead, I was doing just fine, making friends with everyone. Well, except for these guys, because they're just too far away for me to be bothered. So yeah, I think that is it for Cosmoteer for now. I really enjoyed the challenge of building my own ships, actually, so that was quite enjoyable. So I highly recommend for you to try this out if it looks at all interesting to you to begin with. There's a very active Discord community, I believe, as well, that also looks at kind of like PvP battles and things like that. And it's not really my cup of tea, but I can enjoy watching those. There's some quite nice YouTube channels out there as well that just showcase different ships fighting each other. There's all kind of strategy and different type of strategy behind it as well, because the AI is very predictable, but of course human opponents are less so. As a final note, I would want to say that even though this game is in early access and it has been forever, so I'm not sure when it's ever going to be fully released, I only had it crash once. Actually happened in the last few hours of recording, so very much near the end, and it might have been related to something else I've been experiencing, which was kind of a lag type of thing, which seemed to occur when I had multiple ships in different locations doing different things. The game seems to every now and then struggle to either generate the AI or just if there's a lot of things happening. For example, a couple of these ships loading and unloading at the same time. Of course, there's a lot of things happening then. Maybe that's kind of straining the processes. I'm not entirely sure what's causing the lag. I just wanted to point that out. Other than that, the game is looking very well. It's running perfectly, it doesn't crash, and like I said before, it's just a lot of fun to play. So go and check it out for yourself if you find it interesting. Make sure you like and subscribe if you like this content, and last but not least, if you're still here, you are awesome, and I do hope to catch you in the next one.